It's almost too delicious to believe, my friend.
God, that sounds like Hillary.
That is Hillary.
Oh, God, she's so gross.
It's like I'm walking on sunshine.
Welcome back. It's Doomcast number 3. Charlie McGrath and I, Doug Owen, here with you. We are going to get right into it.
Sorry.
You pumped up? You ready to go, Charlie McGrath?
I love this song. I don't know whether you found that little dude, that little Gollum dude at the beginning who says that. And then
It's Towley from South Park. He's a stoner towel.
All right. Well, we see what you do in the off time.
No, well,
I know.
I'm the one that doesn't have a TV. We were just talking about that before the show.
Right. But wait a minute. It is Hump Day, and I'm gonna be. I can't help it. There's once in a while. There's this Madison Avenue comes out with something that cracks me up in the form of advertisement, and it is the Geico Hump Day Camel. Doug. What day is it, Doug? Come on, man. You know you can hear me.
It's Hump Day. Yeah, he doesn't want to empower anybody or engender the camel there because he's really, really excited about it.
It's Hump Day. He's that's what he lives for. That's what he lives for, Doug Owen.
Hey, it's brilliant marketing.
It is, because I'm talking about it. Somebody who doesn't watch TV, somebody who doesn't believe in the domination of our airwaves by 6 corporations. Yet here I am talking about the Geico Camel.
Well,
I failed, I failed.
Well, yeah, I mean, I do watch TV in the sense that, I mean, you can watch it on Hulu. I just don't like having it in the house because then it's there all the time and it becomes this comfortable hum that's always telling you to buy things in the background. Yep. You know, if I want to watch it, that's fine, but I like to have that conscious interface with the TV, or the PC, the screen, tablet, whatever you're watching. And so
I'll put this challenge out there to anybody listening. If you whatever amount of television you watch, be it an hour a day, be it 2 hours a day, and be honest with yourself. If you take half that time, and I'm not saying plan anything or make any kind of an agenda. I'm saying shut the TV off for half that time, and you will find out post haste that you can the amount of things you get accomplished in a day are absolutely phenomenal. Doug, this is how I know this, because, and I think you could probably attest to this. When I like you hold a full-time job, and when I came on to Rinse and I started doing an hour a night, and trust me, when you do an hour radio program, there's more than, it isn't just an hour. You have prep and you have guests and you have all this stuff. There's a lot of people that said there's no way, it's just too much. There's too much work to do there, and you're not going to have enough time in the night. This is getting home at 6 o'clock. Doing the program. Well, then we went to 2 hours a night, and we were still able to do this. How? Because I didn't come home. I didn't get off work at 5 o'clock and then plop down, absorb some infotainment called news, and then get immersed into whatever wives are doing, whatever. Right? Because at that time, it's amazing what you can get accomplished. So I firmly believe that the television in general is one of the greatest opiate of the masses that has ever been created, ever. It's docile down folk. It'll keep people entertained. It'll keep them just informed enough that they think they're part of the process. But in reality, it is a tool to, and it's an opiate. It's like a giant Ambien that people go sit in front of every night, and that takes them right into bedtime. I'm done talking about TV, except for reporting, which I know we're going to get into tonight. Reporting and media.
Media's changed. TV's changed. You know what? God, I hate this. I've got a freaking on-call phone that is like ringing in the background. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna pretend that it's not there for a moment, and then if it's really, really, really important, they will continue to call me. So I'm just gonna hope.
If you just give me the high sign here in the studio next to me.
Send you.
Send me the code, and I'll just run with it. I'll talk about Dianne Feinstein and how her husband is making millions and millions of dollars being involved in the sale of potentially hundreds of postal properties while we continue to see a degradation in service in this country.
He makes a lot of money, and they are both cronies and opportunists to the extreme. So it doesn't even surprise me. But we did want to talk about media and how it's shifting. I think this show and what we're going to be doing with the Doomcast is a fine example of it. And just today, John Kerry made this statement. I don't know if you heard about this. He said, quote, "This little thing called the internet makes it much harder to govern," end quote. And I mean, it's a fine metaphor for how things are changing. The internet, the ability for people to be critical, even hypercritical in a matter of moments, and to unify around whatever it may be, whether it's a revolution or maybe petitioning a government. I mean, in all of the different things that government does, it's harder to execute those activities that they were able to do pretty much carte blanche. I mean, if you look at media itself, you had print, then you had radio, then you had television, which was by far, you just mentioned it, the most pervasive, the most ubiquitous in this country for sure, and definitely the tool of those that would like to get their message to us, whether it's a corporation, government, whatever it may be. So
or
that
camel.
or a camel that gets you to buy some insurance that's probably overpriced. And if you're getting health insurance, I don't even want to talk about the hikes that we've seen.
No, man, we got to save that for another podcast.
That's a whole nother ball of wax. But it's something that I think most people, if you're above the age of 25 and you're not on your parents' plan anymore, it's something that's a consideration. But the whole idea when you look at healthcare and the drug pharmacy corporations, big pharma, they're the ones that primarily sponsor and fund television. I mean, turn on almost any mainstream cable news network, and most of the commercials are for drugs. But now we have this little thing, as John Kerry called it, called the internet, and that has completely changed things. And the age of big data is a double-sided sword for the government, because they can harvest data from you and I and our families, and they can sell that. Medical companies are selling your records, your hospital selling your electronic medical records to private entities, insurance companies, and the like. So things have definitely changed in that regard. But in that, the government has swaths of data that they are using as well that can be used against them, and we're seeing more of that come to light. So I mentioned Barret Brown, somebody who's not getting any mainstream media attention, and he's a guy who has been in prison for over a year. He's definitely a political prisoner. A prisoner, and he is somebody who brought us this knowledge of trapwire, which is the camera systems throughout the United States being connected and having that real-time video, and in some states, in places, audio interface to the government, to the fusion centers, to the FBI. We would not even know about this. So he's rotting in jail, and not many people know about him at all. I was glad to see that Vice, which is run by Viacom, but they have a lot of good information. They have a very popular TV show, a news show on HBO, and they had this piece this week highlighting what we should give accolades to Barret Brown about, but also that the media itself is trying to forget this. So you mentioned Dianne Feinstein. She's somebody who is trying to regulate the media. She's one of these people that's pushing to have this clarification of what is a journalist and who is a journalist and who is not. So, it speaks right to the First Amendment. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think you surmised exactly, what we face right now. But what was it, Zbigniew Brzezinski? He echoed what Kerry had to say earlier. When he talked about a more informed populace is harder to pull the wool over their eyes. I'm paraphrasing, of course. But information, the free exchange of information and ideas, you and me right now having this podcast and people that are going to be picking up, listening to it later, that is a very, very, very dangerous thing, especially when people do decide they want to unplug from pop culture infotainment and they want to look for truth. They want to look for something that, if nothing else, stimulates their mind better than the dribble that is put out there as news and entertainment. That is a very dangerous thing. So, Doug, I do believe you're right on this 100%, that the demise of media in general. And I want to extrapolate a little bit, though, because media, what you and I probably consider to be media is something far different than our average, let's say, sheeple in the country, who is still just dialed into the pop culture, dialed into whatever comes across on their television, and everything else is nothing but guys sitting on their computer in their basement, spewing drivel, spewing conspiracy theories. There is I know there's an awakening in this country of people that are looking for truth. That is why establishment media, the alphabet networks, the newspapers and magazines, they're losing listenership and readership, but in droves. In fact, I believe it was in 2009. And I'm pulling quotes from the past here, but I think it was 2009 when it finally hit the tipping point where over 50% of the people didn't trust the establishment media to report the information. You and I consider media to be, consider media to be people like you were just speaking about, people that I wanted to bring to the program tonight, Ladar Levinson. This is a guy who saw the events of 9/11, and more importantly, saw the Patriot Act written pre-9/11 that was going to lead to a need in our economy. And he saw the need as being the ability to send information without having Big Brother looking at it. So he started a little company called Lavabit. Now, Lavabit cost you about $10 a month or so to use this service, and it encrypted your email so well that even experts say it's almost impossible for the government to intervene and look at your information. Well, Edward Snowden used Lavabit. He used it to communicate with journalists. He used it to send information out because he trusted the encryption process. Well, here we have Edward Snowden. The story 3 months ago, Doug Owen. Mm-hmm. The story that was brought to us by establishment media, shock and awe media. Holy cow, the world is coming to an end media that likes to take information and push it through the colon of reality. They push it through just one big mass dump, cancerous dump, and they put it on the that's gross. This cancerous colonist dump. They take this information and they plop it right onto the people of the world. And regardless of what you feel about Edward Snowden, if that information was organic and he had a twang in his heartstring and decided to put it out there, I personally believe that's the case. Or you believe he's a shill and he's being used and blah, blah, blah. It's irrelevant. The information went through the colon of reality and was dumped onto the people of the world that Big Brother is watching you, plain and simple. Now, our media did their job, and they showed outrage and shock and awe. And there was congressmen and senators on TV for a minute or two. They were talking about it. And now we even have the president, right, talking about we need to look at and refine and reform and change. And bull crap. Right. This was done in order to let you know that you are surveilled. If you don't like it, tough. So what happened? I'll be brief here. Ladar Levinson, his Lavabit company, 10,000 subscribers, $100,000 a year enterprise, right? Not a very big concern whatsoever. When he's asked for information on his subscribers, right? In the past, it's been court orders, individual subscribers. He has complied with court orders and given them that information. But now the tyrannical government's saying they want information apparently on everybody, and he says, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to shut it down. He is in fear for his freedom. ACLU lawyers are saying that, you know what, it's hard to answer these charges because we're not even allowed to know what some of the accusations or charges or demands that are being made of Ladar Levinson. Doug, this is media to me. Somebody like Ladar Levinson, who is helping exchange information and ideas freely, honestly. This is the fledgling media that people like John Kerry, Zabinski, can't even ever say his name right.
Call him
they're
Z-Big. That's what I like.
Z-Big.
There you go.
The Z-Big, Z-Man. This is what they're terrified of, and this is what's coming under assault next. And it's oxymoronical almost, right? Because you have the press decrying, freedom of information and safety and privacy. But in reality, it's going to get a whole lot worse because of the release of this information, Doug.
Well, and look at this. The other side of this is that this is what is actually happening. They're going after people like this man, Mr. Levinson, for running services, and he's facing arrest right now. I got that from CNBC today. I saw a blurb about that. So, I mean, he could be arrested for what he was involved with, and really, right. I mean, it was so encrypted. It's not like he was actually monitoring and reading these emails or even cognizant of what it was being used for.
No, he facilitated. Right, that's what they're going to say.
Well, let's just let's juxtapose this to what the FBI was doing. And I don't know if you heard about the Tor browser that just last week it came to be, or we found out that this super ultra secretive system that is being used allegedly by pedophiles was primarily being run by the FBI, and that they had used this as part of their entrapment scheme. And so everybody, hails this as a victory because no one likes monsters or pedophiles, and so it's really hard to say, well, what you did was wrong, because they have that moral high ground, or at least this the perception to people, the public that look at these stories from a voyeuristic aspect. They're just listening to the blurbs. They're not actually looking and doing their own research into any of the backstory.
Sure. And I don't mean to cut you off.
Sure, go ahead.
But this, I want to prove your point. By tomorrow morning, right? Here's what the average person in the country is going to think about what's going on with. Oh man, I completely lost my train of thought there. Bradley Manning, with the PFC Bradley Manning trial. Sorry. I was
apparently today he was able to make some kind of speech, or he was, and that's what I wanted to allude to. The average person that will grab this little tidbit of news that is bundled and packaged for him, this blurb, and hold on to this as the undying truth. Tomorrow morning we'll be hearing how he had gender issues, and how he sent pictures of himself in long wigs and lipstick, and he's a woman trapped in a man's body. And look, they're going to make this guy, even though he said on multiple occasions, he did this because he couldn't stand the bloodlust. He couldn't stand to see what's happening. They're going to turn him into dirt by the, probably by the end of the news cycle tomorrow night. I don't know if you've seen those pictures that came out of him cross-dressing.
Yeah.
I saw that. Yeah, I mean, I knew the guy was gay. And when I was in the military, I knew guys were gay, but we were in Bill Clinton's "Don't Ask, Don't Tell," which worked pretty well. You knew who was gay, but you didn't talk about it. Kind of, I like that. There wasn't a discussion. It wasn't an issue. You do your job, you do your thing, and
but see how divisive it is, though. Mm-hmm. I mean, see how this. I mean, look, this is exactly where the Bradley Manning, I believe, dialogue is going to go in the next days. It will be used, even though the information was genuine, and you can't dispute it because you can watch it, right? You can watch the videos of the things that inspired him. But if we can take an issue like this and make people argue about it.
Where are the gay rights activists? Where are they at? Where's the LGBT community when it comes to Bradley Manning? I haven't heard from them. Are they speaking out? Because almost any kind of opportunity to cast someone as a victim of their sexuality or race, you would think the media would. I mean, that's usually their MO, so you would think that would be the case. But pretty silent. Now they're upset about Putin and the Olympics coming up in 2014, but not so much about Bradley Manning. I don't know. I mean, it really does show you, I think, the state of affairs and how people enjoy the mudslinging aspect. That's the news. It's right. Really, I see it across the board. It's not just media, but per se, news per se, but even in pulp culture. It's about shaming people. It's really a form of bullying, which is kind of ironic because we have our First Amendments being taken away from us because of these bullying laws. But and at the same time, people. That's why I think all of these news organizations and the media in general has to have a complete wiping, and we're seeing that with Mr. Bilderberger extraordinaire Bezos, who has bought the Washington Post, and that's because that rag's no longer credible. And so I think that what we're seeing is this huge media shakeup because they realize at this juncture that they are losing relevance. They are losing the ability to create the talking points. They're now having to respond to the accusations of people like yourself and I. They have to respond. If it goes viral, they have to say something. It used to be really easy to ignore people, and that's what John Kerry and many others like Mr. Brzezinski fear, and that is that they will be held to account. Their quotes will be remembered. It used to be you had to be able to read. 100 years ago, you had to be able to read to even have a clue of what's going on. And even 50 years ago, you probably had to read books to know about sinister communist plans in this country. If you watch television, you wouldn't hear much. But now, average people, the youth, people like you and I and the listeners, the doomers out there, they get to read white papers. They get to hold these people to account, and they get to remind them in public and record them when they throw up their quotes and ask them, hey, why did you say that eugenics is a good idea? Why, Mr. Holder or Holdren, do you think that you should put birth control pills and other cancerous materials in the water supply to reduce the population? That's a hell of a thing. You have to attest to that now.
Yeah, you do. And in reality, the enemy of this cabal, right? The enemy of the powers that be is the internet in one form. Yet it's still the internet is a tool that they must have in order to get this totalitarian wet dream, Doug Owen, of complete and total domination and control, because you can't have it. You can't have it without it, right? You can't monitor everybody all the time, 24/7, without this internet, right? So they can't live with it. They can't live without it. So what they're doing, as is very, very self-evident, is they're working diligently, as you talked about, Nancy Pelosi, describing what a journalist is, what news is, what you can say, what you can't say. They're talking about different internets. They're talking about, I've heard talk of licensing fees if we're going to do things such as this, or our radio programs, or our websites.
Michigan's talked about it. Dianne Feinstein has proposals. They've been working on this because, and this is part that goes right into this whole meme about whistleblowing, and that is who is a whistleblower, who is not a whistleblower, and what proper channels you go through. See, you can't just get a cache of documents and just throw them on the internet, because that is dangerous. So
Right.
They want to create sanctioned, licensed, regulated people, maybe like a Glenn Greenwald, maybe like the Guardian or the New York Times or other establishments, outposts for this kind of dissent. And so the Guardian was just the one paper that decided to pick up this story. They shopped it to several before and of course all of this stuff that we've seen, I think it's really important. You have to understand this. All of this has been cleared by the National Security Council. So when they came up with these documents, the Guardian went to the U.S. government and said, hey, we have this. Is it okay if we publish it? And they said, sure, go ahead. So it's with the government's consent and all of that. So people get wrapped up in, I think, this secret information that we're getting. It's not that. It's that because you can go back throughout history, all the way back to the 70s and even before that, Project Echelon, Trailblazer, the Promise system. Those are all prequels to what we're seeing with this global system, PRISM. So, surveillance and intelligence gathering is nothing new. but now they're trying to legalize it and trying to codify this, and a lot of it's for domestic propaganda. One of the things about the internet is that your foreign propaganda is no longer foreign propaganda, and that's why they changed the law. So that way, the CIA can put disinfo, and we know most of these news outlets have a CIA liaison or somebody there that's doing the vetting. Guardian,
Right.
This story, I mean, proves that they actually do work in collusion or in concert with the intelligence agencies as to what they publish and what they do not publish. So everything that you get in the New York Times, it might be riveting, it might be great information, and you're probably one of 3% of people that even know this, but the government's okay with you knowing that.
Yeah. Well, they got to let, I mean, right, they got to let it out. You got to, I mean, this is the argument that Snowden was a setup, right? And this is the argument that I've heard, that he was a setup. But because you have to let the people know eventually, right? You have to let them know. Sometimes it's the boiling frog where they turn up the heat slowly, where we've seen, a slow decay of freedom over a long period of time. And sometimes it's just the big colon push, bam, this is it. How many people were enlightened, Doug Owen, to the fact that all their information is being recorded? All this metadata is being recorded. That was several months ago. The nation as a whole, a group awakening occurred, at least a group realization that this was happening. Not only is your emails, being tracked and the metadata tracked, but your physical mail is being photographed. The license plates. There's a more than likelihood that more chance than not, then your license plates have been recorded. That metadata is being kept. The nation as a whole was let in on this secret because I believe this is how they justify it or rationalize it. Sometimes it's immersion, sometimes it's shock and awe. I believe that this information release will settle as it has. We're not talking about it that much anymore, at least in establishment media. We're talking pop culture issues. We're talking, immigration, gay marriage, and other pop culture type issues. And this is now going to evolve into a hammer and anvil, and the people that are trying to spread truth, such as you and me, inevitably are going to end up between that hammer and anvil.
Well, they're losing a lot of fronts, though. With this, I'll say one thing. The ousting, the firing of 90% of these NSA analysts. Yeah, that is a huge mistake. They're even publishing these pro-NSA editorials. They've been trying to do this. I say they, the NSA. And
no one cares. No one cares, Doug.
And the hacking community is something that the government heavily relies on. So I think that this is actually... not that the people, knowing this will probably change too much. I mean, Google said this. This is something that, this is what has come out of this. Google now says that they read your email, okay, and that if you use Gmail, you should have no reasonable expectation of privacy. They're working in concert with the FBI. Yeah. And that was a press release today. So that says a lot about it, because now it's not, we would never do that. Now you have to say, well, I'm okay with that. And I don't, and a lot of people are. A lot of people are going to say, that's fine. That's fine.
You do anything wrong. I ain't got nothing to worry about.
Yeah, well, yeah.
That's the argument, right? I have traffic cams everywhere. I don't care. I don't speak. Well, you know what? 6 degrees of separation. Everybody's in touch with everybody.
Oh, and everybody commits a felony on average. Most people in this country, the United States of America, on an average, commit at least one felony unknowing a day and break at least 8 laws. Right. So it's not that you're not doing anything wrong. It's that you are always doing something wrong, and now the government can selectively screw you retroactively, or use it for pre-crime.
Pre-crime. Everything's illegal, so everybody can be nailed down at any time. And using this metadata, even if it's license plate metadata or physical mail metadata, we already know, it's already been let out into the mainstream, into the establishment, that there are situations where, for falling under the umbrella of counterterrorism, crimes have been, put through the system, and law enforcement has been told, find a different reason. We know this guy has got some marijuana in his car, or whatever the case may be, or he's going to pick up some marijuana, but we can't say you got it through this stream, so find another avenue to prosecute. This is a complete and total breakdown of the rule of law when you have so-called enforcement working with so-called security in order to penalize the people of this country illegally, in order to prosecute them illegally. It is a breakdown of law. Why I said nobody cares when you talked about the NSA making a big mistake in replacing all these supervisors. You know what? Nobody cares. We're 3 months past the deal, and again, we're more concerned about how Tim Tebow's doing in with the Patriots than we are about this issue. And at the end of the day, they replace these supervisors to take the weak link out of the system. It's automated systems now, so this information can't accidentally fall into a whistleblower's hand.
Hey, you know what? You want to know what makes conservatives, Republicans, and people that hate Obama matter than the fact that today we found out that 3 more weapons have been found from Fast and Furious with blood on their hands? You know what makes them even more angry than knowing that the IRS is reading their emails? It's this right here.
Barack Obama, thank you for doing everything and all the kind stuff. Thank you for all the stuff that you helped us with. Thank you for taking the courage and responsibility for everything you have done for us. And God has gave you and special power.
God gave him special powers like a mutant.
And you are going to handle it just fine.
You give him a little confidence. I like that. He feels the need to warm up Obama.
You are good, Barack Obama. You are great, and when you get older, you will be able to do
I am
great
not
things.
a dictator. I'm the president.
Barack Obama!
Yeah, so that has been angering people in chain emails that I've been receiving, and it's a young child praying to the not son of God, but special deity. Almost elevating him to dare I say a Mohammed status. I don't know, but
Muhammad, or I guess I'm going to play both sides. I mean, it could be a Moses status. I'm sure crack his staff on the rock and it would spring forth the sweet water of the earth.
Anyway, people are really pissed off about this, and I don't know if you remember back when they had that expose Jesus camp with all the kids there praying to George Bush. And so I was thinking about this. I was watching this kid, and I immediately thought about those kids, because they told him George Bush, what we're doing over there, killing the people in Iraq and waging war on the infidels is God's work, and that through God, George Bush is doing God's work for Jesus and other maybe deities. Who knows what these people really believe, but I thought about that, and I was like, I just wonder, what are the parents telling them now, Charlie McGrath, that Barack Obama is president of the United States? Do they believe it's because there's too many gay people? Because they have to rationalize this. The people that told them that George Bush was good and he's God-esque. If he's God-esque, or Barack Obama's a god, or whoever it may be, then what are they telling? What is the reason why he's no longer in power? How do they justify that to their kids? What kind of story?
Because man has fallen, and we live in an age of sin, and the evil Muslims have influenced governance, and now we have a Muslim. I mean,
they're pushing anti-Sharia laws in places like North Carolina and other red states. I mean, it's getting a little push. I mean, I don't. There's a lot of people that think that's a real threat. I mean, what are your thoughts? I've never asked you about all that.
Well, my thoughts are it's the absolute quintessential foundation of divide and conquer. Absolute baseline divide and conquer. You pit somebody's religion against another person's religion, and those two will never see the same path. They will hate each other as long as the sun shines and the moon rises. They will hate each other. And so you have the neocon set or the red state set that are all praise Jesus, let's kill some Muslims. And when their guys out, you'll bring in Obama, and they will be able just to say to their children, look at the evil Muslims, look what they've done. Look, they're taking over the world. Anti-Sharia law. We got to go out and kill more and more and more. Yet to know that it's a canard and to know it's a bait and switch, all you have to do is look at the results, because it doesn't matter if it's a Jesus-fearing white man in the office or a Muslim black man in the office. We still march to the same drum. Before anybody gets ticked off and sends emails to me or Doug, I'm pontificating on what the thought process is of blue state versus red state. I do believe that this religion-based argument is the foundation of how you can divide and conquer a people and keep them distracted while you keep the same game going on.
There's a lot of variants of the theocracy. You see that especially in Israel. I think that's a fine example of a theocracy where you have a Jewish, a religious state. You have the caliphate that the Muslims would like to see, at least some of the more zealots. You have plenty of Christians in this country that want to see the separation of church and state completely abolished. And so it's just one of those things that I think of people. I mean, you're right. It's a divisive wedge issue because, people are like, well, the reason that everything sucks is because we don't have the 10 Commandments in the schools. And I'm just like, well, the teacher can't teach our kids math. I don't think they're going to be able to teach them morality either. So to me, that's just a non sequitur.
Look, I think there's a place for anybody's religion in our society. You've never asked me, I've never asked you. I am a Christian. However, Christianity, I believe, has been hijacked, just like the faith, the Muslim faith, has been hijacked. You have crazy extremes in both, and both of them are convinced and trying to convince as many people as possible that it is that other faith or a different faith that is leading to the end of the world.
That's the one thing I think that religion, the problem with religion, or at least the way that it's propagated, and that is that most people that I've heard that are religious believe that they are right and that they will have salvation while others won't. And I think that's the problem, is that if you're a good person, you should not go ahead and think that everybody else is going to hell or some other godforsaken place because they don't agree with you.
Look, I don't care if they rip the heads off the chickens. Right. And spread the entrails out. As long as they don't infringe upon my rights, my freedoms, I don't care what they do or what they believe, and we certainly shouldn't be.
But that's not to exclude the Muslims. Oh, they believe the exact same thing. They believe that they're right and that others aren't going to get to the paradise. And so, it's just like, my God's better than your God. It's funny because I have this shirt that has a Ganesha on it. You familiar with a Ganesha? I'm sure you are. It's the elephant from the Hindu religion because they have multiple gods. Well, anyway, Ganesha, the multi-armed elephant, is the god of getting stuff done, right? The god of accomplishment, the god of mathematics to those that subscribe to it. So, Ganesha it's not really a god. I guess it kind of is, but it's more of a symbol of like a spirit. And so my sister-in-law, a little anecdotal story, she is a staunch, devout Christian. And she said, she was like, well, what is that? And I explained what the Ganesha is. And she goes, well, I like my God better. And I was like, well, to each his own. But, she's not one of those people that goes around and tells people, like those crazy Southern Baptists. And if you're Southern Baptist, I'm not trying to ostracize you from this show. But, the ones that are just the doom, super doom and gloom.
Wait a minute. Don't be dissing doom.
Well, I was just thinking about that. I was like, maybe we should have more of that style to the show of the brimstone and end of days. And I'm sure.
I think it's the height of hubris to assume that that your sect, your religion, whatever it is the end all be all answer. Now, like I said, I'm a Christian, so I believe the core beliefs of the Christian faith, the Christian belief system. But look, I'm a man. I'm fallible, and first of all, you're right. If you want to believe in the god of immune system, echinacea, that's your business. It's none of my concern. See what I did there? Ganesha.
Well, and you'll remember it, and you'll look it up afterwards. You'll go to the to the wiki. No, and I was raised, and you didn't ask myself either. Before,
I didn't want to.
It wasn't a deal breaker, but I was raised Methodist, and
one of them. You're one of them.
Yeah, I like the idea of Luther. He was a rebel. He's like, look, we don't need all the hocus pocus. God, we don't need a box. We can just talk to God. It was for a higher, elevated, non-governmental system. You know, he looked at what the church and the state, which was one, did, and in his mind, he said, well, you know, this is not right.
Here's what I'd like to do.
Yeah,
I'd like to pivot off this topic because it's an absolute loser. No matter
God's always a loser, but I think it's interesting, because people are having these questions. More and more people. Faith is not something that most people don't have.
I was going to say this. I don't mind having a discussion on faith, right? Mm-hmm. Because faith is something completely different than religion. And maybe we should try to leave it at this, which is faith is something that is wholeheartedly different than religion. And I think it's pretty evident looking throughout history. Religion is a control apparatus. It's a control apparatus that has been used to do just that on populaces around this world for time immemorial. Will we agree on that?
Oh yeah, it's like so many things. It's like technology, right? Technology empowers people, and I've seen the faith and belief in a higher power empower people and do wonderful things. And people, I do believe, whether something else outside of what we know, outside of the 3-dimensional world that we live in, right, intervenes, or if it's just how powerful we are. Either way, it's pretty magnificent. But you see people that do that. So, yeah, I'm not somebody. I'm a seeker in that regard. I'm not convinced. I guess I'm kind of agnostic, but I'm not afraid to have the discussion. Because I think there's nothing wrong with having the discussion. I think it's really, really interesting, and I like hearing.
I do too, but it's first of all, I think you subscribe to the ancient astronaut theorist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of theories, and now there's more and more of those.
Damn it! This is one of the times where I wish you watched some TV, because that is funny. Have you seen that program?
What is it?
Ancient Astronauts.
I've seen the guy, and I've seen pieces of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they found the guy that makes it look as wacky as possible, absolutely. And you know that is absolutely a mainstream media deception. Speaking of media, you want to hear some funny stuff? This is, we talk about how there's not a lot of discussion that's happening in the mainstream media. One of the few media outlets that is even having discussion about what's really happening, like TPP and others, is RT. So I got this clip from Larry King, and he's talking to Elliot Spitzer. You're familiar with Elliot Spitzer. He's supposed to be a Wall Street hard ass, going after the banks. And then he had his own little faux pas with a hooker, and that all came out right. This was about the same time that Blagojevich, remember old Blagojevich?
Right.
Yep. He went after Bank of America, and immediately he had his own problems trying to shop a Senate
prison
seat
in Denver, Colorado, right now because of it. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So anyway, I saw this. I was curious because Larry King has come back to RT. And I don't know how much they're paying him. And it was Larry King Tonight. They changed the name of it, and maybe they were being sued by CNN. I don't know. But they decided it's like now it's called politicking. But I just caught this, and it's funny because this is the conversation, and it doesn't matter if you're talking about the economy, politics, if you're watching MTV, if you are on the internet. It always comes right back down to this. No matter whether you're watching U.S. media or Russian media, you end up in these kind of conversations.
One of the rivals in the mayoralty election, Christine Quinn, says that she didn't think you said that you would not vote for Weiner, and she said you're not in a position to discuss Weiner or anything. You shouldn't be discussing the private lives of other figures. How do you react to that?
Well, look,
and he starts talking about the top-down approach here in a moment. There's nothing else to it, but this whole thing is scripted, and Larry King is allegedly one of the best interviewers ever.
Oh,
Legend.
crap.
Legend.
Yeah.
According
He's
to
horrible.
some, according to the people that make those decisions in our world, Charlie. They think,
Yeah, well, the statistics
but,
show.
but
that
it has
Harry
nothing
Kane-
to do with the fact that he goes after bankers. Has nothing to do with his platform. And now he wants to be, I think, the comptroller, state comptroller, and he wants to get his hand. And then he goes on and he talks about he wants to get his hands dirty. And I'm like, it's a bad platform. I don't know who's advising these people, but
Well, it's more shock and awe in our political system, which I believe the establishment media, the 6 main conglomerates that control it, there is I think is a calculated effort to show dysfunction in government, and if that wasn't the case, then I don't think we'd be seeing such utter dysfunction in government. Why do they do it? Well, I think it's simple. Because the more dysfunctional your government is, the more that you have to consolidate power into fewer and fewer hands. 535, that's too many people in Congress, so we have to have super committees, or super
Congress. Ooh, yeah,
Right.
they all get capes.
Yeah, they all get capes, and when that isn't good enough, we'll just we'll fall back on executive orders. You opened the program tonight talking about Kerry and the internet, but also in that little speech he gave, he talked about the president of this administration working outside of Congress to pass tougher or to implement tougher global warming legislation or policy. See if you can
With
show
or without.
With or without Congress, yeah.
Yes.
You show you show that your government is dysfunctional. Then all of a sudden you need somebody like that poor, misguided, unfortunate, lost little boy or girl, whatever it was, praying to Obama. You need more deity in power so they can fix everything. For you.
That's what people want. See, he says, I've been doing this through executive order. And if you count the number of times that he says I during these speeches, he takes full responsibility. But you're right. It's demonizing the representative government system that we have today, the dysfunction, the inability to govern correctly is one of the beautiful things I think that we have with our government, because if these a-holes were able to do everything that they wanted and it wasn't nearly so cumbersome and convoluted, God only knows what kind of tyranny that we would be under, or on our way or in a civil war. So there are some
Not
great.
to say any of those things aren't coming, Doug Owen.
Oh well.
listen, but I want to.
Don't dismiss that idea. We joke a lot here on the show, but the reason it is the Doomcast is because at the end of the day, the end game, the end run, if these idiots do not come up with a nice transitional plan to get us out of this. We're looking at complete chaos in the financial markets. You mentioned today that the federal debt has not gone up in over 7 months. Okay, so we should be having some kind of economic crisis. But you know what Jack Lou's doing? Jack Lou's taking money out of the federal pension system. But nobody's talking about it. Now, remember, the media made a huge deal about Boehner golfing with Obama, blah, 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 getting the deal done, bipartisanship buzzwords, blah, blah. Yeah, and the debt ceiling was a huge issue. So we don't even know. I mean, what the debt may be, whether it can be paid off. And this is the scary thing. I guess it just doesn't matter when only yahoos like Doug Owen and Charlie McGrath on a podcast called the Doomcast are discussing these issues.
Yeah,
I mean
that's why I say
that scares the crap out of me, Charlie. That you and I are talking about issues that no one else in this country are talking about. That are just that powerful.
Well, but wait. Let's back that up, because I don't believe that. I believe there are a lot of people talking about this, but if you do talk about these things, you do so at your own risk. You have a clip that I want you to play that has to do with Glenn Greenwald. He is a journalist who was working with Snowden to help release some of this information in the story. But before you, well, go. You know what? Do you have that queued up?
I think I do right here. Let me see.
Because I want to. First of all, let me set the stage here. This is a journalist, right? This is a journalist interviewing a journalist. That's it. That's all I want to say. A journalist from an establishment alphabet network interviewing another journalist. So go ahead.
All right. This is from Mediaite. They had it.
You are a polemicist here. You have a point of view. You are a columnist. You're also a lawyer. You do not dispute that Edward Snowden has broken the law, do you?
No, I think he's very clear about the fact that he did it because his conscience compelled him to do so, just like Daniel Ellsberg did 50 years ago when he released the Pentagon Papers and also admits that he broke the law. I think the question, though, is how can he be charged with espionage? He didn't work for a foreign government. He could have sold this information for millions of dollars and enriched himself. He didn't do any of that either. He stepped forward, and as we want people to do in a democracy, as a government official, learned of wrongdoing and exposed it so we could have a democratic debate about the spying system. Do we really want to put people like that in prison for life when all they're doing is telling us as citizens what our political officials are doing in the dark?
Final question for you, but I'd like you to hang around. I just want to get Pete Williams in here as well. To the extent that you have aided and abetted Snowden, even in his current movements, why shouldn't you, Mr. Greenwald, be charged with a crime?
I think it's pretty extraordinary that anybody who would call themselves a journalist would publicly muse about whether or not other journalists should be charged with felonies. The assumption in your question, David, is completely without evidence, the idea that I've aided and abetted him in any way. The scandal that arose in Washington before our story.
All right, he defends himself here for another minute or so, but you get the gist. He's basically accusing him of being a criminal.
Yeah, David Gregory, who is he looks like a cyborg. He is Meet the Press, right? And he is a very well respected establishment journalist. He is the one that will have no problem having Nancy Pelosi sign off on his papers calling him a journalist. For him to ask Glenn Greenwald that should terrify everybody, because the only thing Greenwald did was take information as a journalist and bring it to the light of day, right? The so-called transparency. And to have another member of the establishment media, who, by the way, has been under scrutiny from this same tyrannical government as of late, and hard and heavy, for him to come out and say that to him should tell you exactly where we're at and where we're heading. And if that doesn't, if that little tidbit there doesn't show you, well, understand what Michael Hayden, who happened to be the former NSA director, said in a recent speech that he gave, talking about hackers and or activists or so-called transparency groups can completely drawing a parallel between people like you, Doug Owen, and myself and the listeners to Al-Qaeda. Because he says in his speech, and I'm going to paraphrase here, that he doesn't know what the target of these transparency groups and these activists are going to be. He doesn't know what their twin towers are going to be, like Al-Qaeda's twin towers were going to be. So basically, they're telling us that if you're within the establishment, if you're this reporter in the establishment, they're saying that any dissension out of the status quo or out of the dialogue of the administration or the dialogue of the agenda, anything outside of that, you're going to be labeled a criminal, a terrorist. And if you decide you're going to be an activist and do something about it or even talk about it, then you're tantamount to an Al-Qaeda terrorist who would fly planes into a building. This is where we're at, America. It isn't about are we headed to crisis. We are there. This is crisis.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of people are waiting for the axe to fall. They're waiting for the big, the big event that's going to happen, that's going to change the world, like we saw with 9/11, like we saw with Pearl Harbor. And this time, it might not be a false flag in that regard. It might be the third failure of a central bank in this country, which wouldn't necessarily be a huge thing. It's not that provocative of an idea. We've seen that before, but the sad reality is that most people are so disconnected from the reality of the day, and many of them wantingly blissfully ignorant because of the sad reality that we face. You look at the statistics, you pick up the paper, it's pretty darn depressing.
That's right. We get accused of pessimism porn with your website, my website, my programs, and we will with Doomcast as well, just by the name,
sure.
Which was tongue in cheek when we picked it. But that is the condition that the people are meant to be in, and I'm not talking an enlightened condition where they're seeing the doom that's coming. The powers that be, I truly believe, Doug, they want everybody too afraid or too confused to take part in their own future. Either be too confusing in the financial sector or too afraid that if they don't have this out-of-control security system, out-of-control security state, they are going to be killed by a terrorist. And you talked about what is the event, what is the Bubba event, or the sparking event that leads to another attack in this country. Well, I don't know, but I can look at recent history, and I can see that, out of all the so-called terror events that have happened since 9/11 in this country, right, 150 of them, I'll say it again, 150 of them that folks like over the Joint Terrorism Task Force want to grab onto and show you as successes are nothing but FBI or other security agencies setups, right? They were planned, staged events. So organic terrorism, seriously, man, you have more of a chance of choking to death on a cashew than you have to worry about organic terrorism coming over here. Yet we are devoting all of our energy, all of our attention, all of our resources, and destroying our nation, the freedoms of this nation, at the same time to prevent or to combat this never-ending war on terror.
And only enabling those that do hate us, that do wish us harm. And that's so ironic in all of this. What we are doing is we're creating terrorists. We're creating people that will dedicate their lives to, coming back and vowing vengeance against this country. So, hey, Charlie, we're right here at an hour, man. So we have made a pact to try to keep this thing as short as possible. Never enough time to really grasp. It's just the icing on the cake when it comes to covering a week's worth of news and topics and issues. But I think that we did pretty well in
I do too.
Summating some of the bigger, finer points of the week for the people out there.
Yeah, I do too. You and I both have a tendency, just because of our recent past, of talking for long periods of time, a couple hours at a chunk, to bloviate quite, at length. And we talked about that in the off week. Off week. It's almost, this is a sport now. In the off week, we talked about, a little bit more concise. And I think we did it. I think we picked the topic, which is media, the demise of media, and the use of media as a control method, and the failure of its job as watchdog of government. I think we covered it. What do you think?
Other than maybe sidebarring into religion, which is always highly divisive. That's my fault, but
you wanted to talk about the elephant echinacea, the god of the immune system.
The god of the immune system. No, it's the god of getting stuff done. That's what we got to get out of here.
You still don't get it. You still don't get. It's what is it? It's Anacia, right? Or was that the elephant's name?
Ganesha, yeah.
Ganesha. Echinacea is the herbal supplement that is supposed to boost your immune system. And I was trying to parlay that into a joke.
I'm not familiar. I'm gonna wiki it by next Doomcast for DC4. I will be ready to go.
DC4, I think, with all these inverted crosses that are happening and the fall in the market today.
You know what? Before we get out of here, what's the Hindenburg? Why should I be worried about it? These omens that I keep hearing about in the Wall Street Journal and Zero Hedge. What do you make of them?
Well, I'm not a trader. I don't follow,
I'll tell you what Wikipedia said, just so everybody knows what the official government side says. The Hindenburg omen is a technical analysis pattern that is said to portend a stock market crash. So it's predicting this. It is named after the Hindenburg disaster of May 6, 1937, in which the Zeppelin airship blew up, crashed and burned, and so apparently there are these omens and signs.
It's a technical sign that these technicians that do this trade in and out every day, they look for these these technical patterns and trade off them. The problem is this Hindenburg Omen has been talked about since 2008 multiple times. I don't know if it means anything or not. And even if it did, you'd be looking at a technical omen, comparing it to when maybe we had some semblance of a free market.
Sounds almost religious, an omen.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it is a religion. I mean, you know, the guys who are really into these technical charts and technical analysis, they don't care what the world says. They care what the charts say.
Right.
And, you know, a lot of them make money doing it. But I guess at the end of the day, when you look at any technical data like that, or you look at momentum in markets, like as we can day to day, you got to temper it with this fact that, you know, even 20 years ago, our markets were nothing compared, even 10 years ago, to what they are now. A controlled economy from a central bank that determines the outcome of day-to-day activity in a lot of cases by their actions. So I don't know if it means anything or not. I do know this, the story you did touch on, as we run just slightly over, $16,699,396 million that is held for 78 consecutive days. That story isn't going away. The debt story isn't going away. The slowdown, the fall in full-time jobs, the more people that are fall into the misery index, fall into poverty, none of that's going away. None of that's getting better, even though others are some very select few are getting fabulously wealthy. So I do believe we could see some fireworks here going into the fall, and it will be a DC episode at some point, if not next week, DC4. I like that, DC.
DC? Not to be confused with the District of Criminals. That's a completely different place.
That's right. That's right. Or the skateboarder clothing apparel line.
Yeah, there is that. There is that. Yeah, I bet your kids probably want those or wear that stuff.
That's right. We're gonna get sued now just for saying it.
Well, we should get paid.
Hey, I'm gonna end it on that because I'm in 100% agreement. We should get paid.
Oh wait, that's the wrong button.
Do it again. I want to hear the dude. Can we hear the dude?
Oh, you want to hear the dude?
All
right, here we go. It's like I'm walking on sunshine. All right, guys. Yeah, email me, Doug@blacklistednews.com. Love to hear from you. Comment on the videos at Charlie's YouTube channel and
Krabby Dog Tricks. And if you want to email Krabby Dog Tricks on YouTube, if you want to email me, it is info@wideawakenews.com. And I want to thank everybody for downloading. It's been great response, Doug. Great response. Over, I think we're a couple thousand for last week's, just off the YouTube. So I'm real happy with the people downloading it.
Awesome. Me too. So yeah, let us know what you think. Topics, maybe even guests. I mean, this is definitely something that's a work in progress, and we are refining the Doomcast. Until next time, take care. I like the pterodactyls or whatever.
What's the pterodactyls? Is that the noise?
I don't know. There's just like the sound. It sounds like there's a bird in there. Here, check it out. Hold on. Where to go? Play this. Hit play. So wait. It sounds like.
That's Doug Owen being waterboarded. All right, buddy. I need to edit up this video and go to bed.
Yeah, me too.